Good morning, everybody. Welcome to 6 Steps to a Better Business. If we could, let's get everybody to add their name, their company name, their ideal customer, and their number one business challenge into the chat box, if I could. Get everybody introduced here. So your name, your company name, your ideal customer, and your number one business challenge. And what I want to try to do with the business challenge is I want to try to make sure I address that sometime during the course of this particular webinar, and I want to make sure I know what it is. And while we're waiting for that, what I will do is continue on. My purpose today is to reward your time. You're investing your time and reward it with the simplest and fastest ways to increase your sales and profits, free up your time, and create an amazing team. So that's really the objectives of this. We're going to go through if you will, a roadmap or stepping stones across the river kind of thing. I'll introduce us a little bit, and this is going to be a little bit about ActionCOACH. ActionCOACH is a franchised system. We consider ourselves a number one business coaching firm in the world. We have more than 1,000 coaching offices. We operate in 70 countries worldwide. It's privately owned, founded by Brad Sugars, an entrepreneur and an author, and he also owns about 8 other businesses besides ActionCOACH. Our vision as an organization is world abundance through business re-education. So that's what we're looking for, that we're working on world abundance. We coach over 15,000 businesses a week across the US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and a large number of other countries around the world. So that's a little bit about ActionCOACH. I'm a franchise owner in the ActionCOACH system. I grew up in Rochester, New York. I've got an electrical engineering degree of all things, plus an MSBA from Bucknell, which I completed about 22 years later from engineering. I had worked an engineering career for a long time, and then I chose to switch from engineering into the business side. And I spent the next 20 years running small business units for large manufacturing corporations. When I say large manufacturing corporations, what was then Combustion Engineering, more recently Babcock and Wilcox, who's a competitor of Combustion Engineering. It's kind of funny because the first one I worked for was Combustion. The last one I worked for was Babcock and Wilcox. In between, worked for companies like Alstom, Tampella, Sulzer, which is a Swiss company. So a variety of different assignments. And each of those, I was responsible for running and growing a profit center. So I've got a lot of the experiences that a small business owner has. I thought of the large corporation in a manner of speaking as a bank. And I treated the business unit as a profit center. And I made profit in each case. I grew profit in each case. The last one, I grew 300% in 3 years. And boy, I wish I had known the ActionCOACH system at that time. It was a lot self-taught. I can tell you right now, the MBA did nothing to teach me about how to make money. What taught me how to make money was the hard way. Yes, it gave me some advantages. It helped me with nomenclature, vocabulary, analysis techniques. All of those I share with my clients today. I've been a business coach, a mentor, and a trainer since June of 2010. So in a manner of speaking, I'm just over 10 years. So that's me. For those who have just joined us, if you would please share with us your name, the name of your business, and a little bit about what your number one problem right now that you're trying to overcome. I've got a little bit of input from Kevin. I'd like to make sure that I address the challenges different people face as they go through their business in this time. And yes, COVID has been an issue. What about COVID for you can be an issue? And for some people, COVID's been an opportunity. So let's talk a little bit. I'm going to take myself out of the picture here, if you will. Let's talk a little bit about some mindset issues before we get started so that we go into this with the right perspectives. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the point of power. The point of power is that nice little yellow dot, and we can either be empowered or disempowered. So we want to think about a little bit, what is disempowering? Well, if we go through life blaming people, making excuses, denying the truth of what we're in what way are we empowering ourselves? And in this kind of a case, who do you know that has ever gotten what they wanted by living on the principles of blame, excuses, and denial? On the other hand, for those who take ownership of their situation that they're in and take responsibility for doing the things that they have to do and become accountable to actually accomplishing those things, then what are the results those kind of people can get? Now, in general, we tend to think of those people that live on blame, excuses, and denial as disempowered or victims, if you will. And we tend to think of those people who take ownership of their situation and focus on the goals and focus on the outcomes and take responsibility to do the things that they have to do. We tend to think of those people as empowered. Now think about your life and your business, and in what ways are you empowering yourself? In what ways maybe are you disempowering yourself? And which do you find gets you the better results? And focus on what those things are. And that's what we're going to stay focused on here today, is if we can stay above that point of power today, then we can get a lot more success out of the time that we've invested today. So with that, once we start thinking from that perspective, then the only failure is the failure to actually participate. If we try, but we have a backup plan, that's not really fully participating. That's not giving 100% to get 100%. Now, the other side to that is to think about, this is a lab. Everything we do is in an experiment. Not every experiment gets us what we're looking for. Not every experiment produces the outcome that the scientist is looking for, but that gives us data. Experiments that don't work are data. So the question is, what can we learn from that experiment? How can we go back and redo the experiment to get us the results that we're looking for? And if you think about some of the most successful people in the world today, every single one of them will tell you they've failed their way to success. And that's because they thought of life in this kind of a way, is they test and measure, test and measure, test and measure until they find the right way of doing things that produces the outcome that they're looking for. They don't keep doing it because they like to do it that way. They keep treating it as an opportunity to learn better ways to do that. So that kind of takes us to this thought. If you want to get the most out of learning, you get rid of these two words. These are the words that will really stifle your opportunity to think and learn and grow. And if we can get rid of those, then we can replace them with an alternative phrase. Isn't that interesting? And this has got to become a mantra. Isn't that interesting? Learning from another person is an awesome way to get more data. If it worked for that person, could it possibly work for me? Is there some truth inside of that that I haven't figured out yet that allows me to get to the next step? A little bit more about learning. Kind of be willing to have some fun. This has all got to be a game. If you think about it as fun, as a friend of mine likes to say, if it's fun, it'll get done. If it's not fun, it won't. But where does fun come from? If you really think about it, fun is a decision. We decide what is fun. And how do I know that? Well, think about different kinds of people. Some people are mechanics. Some people are writers. Some people are accountants. How did they get to a place where they decided doing those activities were fun? How many people really like to be accountants? Well, it was a decision that they made along the way. Yes, they had some experiences along the way that kind of put them into that mindset, but it wasn't that they were born accountants or born writers or born mechanics. They decided to find a way to make that fun because there was something interesting about it. Well, you have the opportunity to figure out what you need to make fun so that it can work more effectively for you. Now, what you can expect today and what I'm going to be striving to share is BFOs and blinding flashes of the obvious, things that you may have heard already in a way. What I hope to do is share the same concepts in a way you can actually implement and move forward with. So that's the direction that we're going to go, is I'm going to try to share some different perspectives with you. One thing I'm going to ask is that you turn off the mobile phones so that we don't get any interruptions. We're going to be focused on progressing through this. And I'm going to ask for audience participation. There is a chat box. I'm going to ask you to share in the chat box your questions. I'm going to ask some questions along the way. I'm going to ask you to use the chat box to answer the questions. If you've got a question, do not be afraid to ask it. Just poke it into the chat box, and I will do my best to answer it as at an appropriate time. If not right away, at an appropriate time. So this is actually going to be the important thing. Let's think a little bit about your business and what are you doing? Is your business driving you? Are you like that person in the picture there? Or are you driving the business in a manner in which that you can live in the way you'd like to become? So financially in the way you'd like to become, and having the time to enjoy the financial success. Now, I'm finding that an awful lot of people are like Tom in the upper left corner there. Tom is really slaving away. He's always too busy. Every place he goes, he's always working really, really hard, or thinking about his business, or having to do something about his business right at that particular point in time. So, and we're going to get into a little bit more thought about that particular guy, because most of these guys only ever have what I would term a job. And I tend to think of a job as a just over broke. Now think about all of the people you know who tend to call themselves in a lifestyle business, who tend to think of themselves as an operator. These are guys that can be in this category of just over broke. And the problem, well, let me talk a little bit about the problem. A friend of mine likes to go around pointing out that the Small Business Association says that something between 90 and 95% of all businesses are out of business within the first 5 years. Now, why is that? We tend to see the number one reason for business failure is, frankly, burnout. Somebody, the individual is just beyond what they can do. There's more work, it's constant work, and they're not really getting their money's worth out of this particular experience. So they're always slaving. I know of one who's working 80 to 90 hours a week and not willing to change what he's doing to get a different result. And this is the key. You have to be thinking in terms, if I want a better result, the way I'm doing it is not going to take me there. I have to find other ways to do it so that I can get beyond this case, so I don't go through this burnout category. And by the way, just because you've made it more than 5 years doesn't let you off the hook, because about the same percentage of businesses in the 5 to 10 year bracket go down the same trail. If you look through LinkedIn and poke around and look at people's experiences, you will find an awful lot of people have gone through this business and then moved on to that business and then moved on to that business and are now an employee for somebody else. Well, why is that? Well, in some way, they fired their business and moved on to a place where they could get what they felt was some sort of a steady paycheck. There's a person on this webinar who has described a lifestyle business as a business that will die when you do. And a business is able to be sold so that the owner can move on in some way. So those are two different ways. And that kind of gets us to this next point. Action Coach tends to think of a business by a different definition than that. So in the chat box, what I want to do is get everybody to point out what they think a business should be, and then I will share the definition that Action Coach provides. So I'm asking a question in the chat box. What do you feel is your definition of a successful business? Helps others and the principals. Okay. Meets the goals of the business owner. Okay. Yes. Achieving financial and goal achievement, in your case, student academic success. That's good. Okay. What if I defined a business this way? A commercial profitable enterprise that works without the owner. What would that imply in your particular case? Okay, think about it from this point of view. And we're going to actually go through this in quite some detail. And I'm going to show you a system that accomplishes that. First of all, I'm going to just want you to ask yourself the question, would you want a profitable enterprise that worked for you without you actually having to be there? And just think about it from that point of view. So here is a roadmap, a 6-step roadmap. And I'll tell you, there are many steps within each case, but a 6-step roadmap. We start with mastery to eliminate chaos. Then we build through niche to create a predictable and hopefully profitable cash flow. Then we create leverage to produce efficiency. Then we produce a team to structure ourselves for growth. And as much as I talk about team, this isn't just hiring people to do work. This also includes a leadership team, because at the end of this leadership team, we're going to want to put one of those leaders in charge of the business, the whole business. Then we have time to build synergy, which is talking to the effect of other businesses that may perhaps be synergistic with this business, but are certainly synergistic with your income level. And then we can enjoy the results for the work that we've accomplished. So these are 6 steps that can take a business all the way through to a place where they don't have to be a participant in the day-to-day operation of the business. Now, that doesn't mean they can't be. They can hire themselves back into the business if they like doing the work, but they don't have to be. They could go take a vacation and go someplace and enjoy themselves and enjoy the results of the process that they have produced. So this provides kind of a roadmap, a set of stepping stones to get to a place. Now, within that, there are other systems, subsystems, if you will, that operate. We're going to talk in some depth today about the 5 ways, which is 5 ways to increase the profitable cash that a business produces. In a manner of speaking, it can facilitate scaling a business if it's scalable. That will fit within the niche category. And then the 4 ways are a series of systems that we can apply at various stages during the entire program. So the 4 ways basically define 4 different methods to, or series of systems that facilitate different stages. So we talk about people in education, systems and technology, delivery and distribution, accounting, testing, and measuring. And accounting, testing, and measuring is an intensely profitable way to be looking at things. It's a very powerful tool to drive a business and scale a business forward. People are obviously a significant leverage opportunity as well for nearly any business. Now, what I'm going to do is pause just for a minute and ask you to share what you've learned so far. What's the number one thing you've picked up so far that we should apply in your business? And this is so that I know if I have to go back and pick up another detail, I will know what to pick up. Yeah, trust your people or fire them. Yeah, that's a good point. If you can't trust them, they don't belong on the team. Yeah, create a business that doesn't require you. Once you start creating businesses that don't run without you, that don't need you to be there, you can create any number of businesses that you want. I mentioned that the owner of ActionCOACH, Bradley Sugars, he owns a total of 9 businesses, and ActionCOACH is only one of them. Set up the system and structure, yes. Good. So what we're going to start with is mastery. Now, mastery is the very first thing. And if you don't have mastery, you're going to have a lot of chaos in the business, and it becomes it's going to feel uncontrollable. I hear people talking about too many balls in the air, too much stuff going on, feel like they're running around in circles. And these are people that feel that they're fairly well along in the development of their business. They've got people working for them and they're putting fires out that the team is supposedly working on, and it just gets really, really confusing for them. So we're going to focus on mastery to initiate the commercial aspect of the enterprise. Now, this is not talking about the paperwork that it takes to be an official business. This is talking about getting a business to be truly commercial and operating in some degree of predictability. Now, let's talk for a minute about chaos. What is chaos and what does it do? And this really starts to kill people. I know a couple of business owners that are emotionally in very difficult situations. Their families in very difficult. One of the core issues for them is often poor financial management. They don't understand or don't focus on what are the financial results coming from the business. And so oftentimes that leads to a failure. This is where burnout can really be an issue. Financial management is really a core aspect of this to make your business successful. And while that feels like it's a distraction and it feels like it takes you away from the important work of delivering the product, it's how you know you're doing the right things at the right time. And we'll talk in more depth about what that means as we go. Control, on the other hand, and this really begins on the financial side, although that's not going to be the first topic of mastery quite, but shrewd financial management is a real key. And this includes collecting, tracking, saving, spending the money that you earn so that you are in control of where the money is, and you're going to treat time in much the same way. The first place I'm going to start, though, is going to be destination mastery. There is also money mastery, of course, time mastery, and delivery mastery. All of these things have to be in absolute control in order to have a successful business. We're going to start with mastery, and we're going to start with a destination piece of it, and that begins about what is your goal? Why do you have this particular business? It's certainly there to serve customers, but what's in it for you? Where are you taking it? If I talk about a lifestyle business, as I mentioned before, on a lifestyle business, the business will die with the owner or when the owner decides to give it up. So we really have to think about, is that the outcome that you're really looking for? Or are you looking for a business that will continue on without you? If you want that, what does that look like in a reasonable amount of detail? How much time are you spending day to day, week to week with the business? And by the way, 2 hours can be a rational thing if you've set it up properly and you go far enough. How much money do you want to be making from the business in dividends? And by dividends, what that means is the money that you're not earning by actively working and exchanging your hours for cash. If we're doing a labor business, we're exchanging our time for money directly. This is talking about and thinking about using the business as an investment. If you're using the business as an investment, then it can be producing dividends for you, and you can be using the dividends to set up the next business, and then the dividends from the two of them to set up the next business, and so on and so forth. If you want to go that kind of path, you need to know which one is it that you want, and then that helps guide us as to which strategies matter the most for you and help you the most, get you where you want to go. Now, then we're going to talk about money mastery. Budgeting and reporting are key aspects of this. This is really all about forecasting and knowing that you're working on the things that produce the results, and then reporting to confirm that you produced the results that you were looking for. If you were not getting the results you're looking for, then it gives us the tool to sit back and say, well, what do we change in order to continue to get what we want? core aspect of this is we need to be operating in some place that is above break even. If we're below break even, we're going to be literally going to be bankrupting ourselves. We're going to have a constant cash drain. It's the fear of that cash drain that drives a lot of those people to burn out. So we have to have a set of strategies that put us into the profit category and far enough into the profit category that it's worth the time we want. Otherwise, we've got just a job. And what is a job all about? A job is all about exchanging your time for your money. You might as well be an employee for somebody else and let him worry about getting the work or her worrying about getting the work for you. So you really want to kind of stop and think about it. I'm not going to go through the details of this particular chart here in this particular format. We can certainly do it for your business in a more private setting. But the concept of this is you want to be above break even, kind of, or else. Or else is it gets really, really chaotic. It gets really, really stressful. And that's where people or where people bail out and burn out. So we really want to get above that particular point in time. The next thing that's a real core to success in a business is time mastery. Are we really working on the things that matter in the business at this time or not? Now, there's a little list here of invoices sent on time, collection of debt, provisioning of products and services, knowing the KPIs, and positive cash flow. These are the high productivity activities. It's remarkable how many businesses do not focus on enough on these particular things. I know of some businesses that are not collecting cash in anywhere near the ferocity that they need to be collecting on their invoices. Well, they got to start with actually sending out the invoices, and that becomes another thing. They get so caught up in providing the services or the product that they never actually send an invoice. Invoices then wait out for months and sometimes longer. And then customers start to ask, why should they even pay? If they weren't important to you then, why are they important to you now? And this obviously matters to your profitability. So these become important kinds of activities to be focused on, which then takes us to how are we using our time across the board? Now, we find a lot of people working on things that are not so much urgent and not so much important. And these tend to be a distraction. A joke I like to tell people is that could be video games. But in reality, they are working on many things in their business that are not urgent and not important. And we want to keep that down to a minimum. Then we get to things that are urgent, but not important. And this might be a friend that calls up and asks for something. Can you do this right now for me? Well, yeah, to them it's urgent, but is that important to your particular set of goals at this time? Perhaps that's a delusion of importance. Getting out of the delusion stage is a very good place to be. Urgent and important. Now we're getting into the things that add value to your business. So for example, we get to the taxes. Do we wait until April 1 to work on the taxes, or in this year, July 1, because we got a reprieve? Do we wait until the very last minute, and then we have to drop everything, and maybe we can't support our most important customer adequately because we're busy doing what we have to do for the government? So this is a bit of a demand, and this can really suck up your time if you haven't planned it out well. And so where we really want to be is the stuff that's not yet urgent, but it's very important. So in this particular case, suppose we had started the tax work in February, and we could have worked at it in those in-between moments when things were not quite so urgent, and we can get it done before it becomes a place where we have to drop an important customer's request so that we work on the taxes at that time. There's that awesome video out there that Stephen Covey did on the big rocks. And if you haven't seen it, I highly encourage seeing it. It's focusing on what are those things that are most important to you and making sure we have those blocked out and work on the time so that we can get what we need done, and then we can work on those other little things that come along that are not quite so important but we'd like to do because we like to do them. Maybe it's for a friend, maybe it's for ourselves. What we want to do is stay working on the business as opposed to being the mechanic in the business. So how many customers can we serve if we do it? How many customers can we serve if 6 other people are doing it for us and we've taught them how it needs to be done? Or maybe 12 other people, or maybe 25 other people. Think about how you can leverage your business. But to do that, you can't be the one doing it all the time every day. You have to be working on the business to set it up so you can make that happen. Now then, are you delivering consistently? Customers expect us to be providing a consistent product or a consistent service. They know what they're going to get when they come to us. McDonald's, how does McDonald's do so well? Well, they're extremely consistent. When you drive up to a McDonald's, you know exactly what you're going to get for the order that you place. If you drive up to some other hamburger stand, well, you may not know exactly what you're going to get. And if you're in it for the adventure, then that's fine. But if you're in it for a quick meal that you know exactly what it is that you're going to get, sometimes, most of the time, many people want that consistency of delivery. So staying focused on consistency, and this means systemizing the process. And as you systemize the process, then you can teach people about what it is you want them to do so that their service matches yours, how you would do it. And then your job becomes not actually doing the work, but making sure that the work got done properly to the appropriate standards. So it becomes more of a managerial process and a leadership process instead of a doing process. That gets you closer to working on the business and growing the business. Now, that's where we start to have a foundation. Getting these 4 big things done becomes a major foundation towards making cash flow predictable. And predictable cash flow means now we have an opportunity to scale. So we think of niche as the profitable part of that definition. We talked about a commercial profitable enterprise that works for about the owner. The niche is the profitable side of this. And this has got a couple of different aspects to it, major aspects. So if we're going to focus on niche, on one hand, we're focusing on no price competition. If you're in a niche and you work to own that niche, you don't have price competition. Now, this is a little bit different from what many people feel. Many people feel that price is their main competitive issue. And if you focus on price as a main competitive issue, then you're in a race to going out of business, in a manner of speaking. You're providing plenty of service, you're doing lots of work, but you're not really getting the money that allows you to leverage doing more for more people. So when you're in a price competition, in a manner of speaking, it's deadly for your business. If you can get yourself to serving people properly, completely, with a great quality product, with a set of outcomes that are really what a major group of customers want, then you can learn to own it. And then you don't have so much price competition, and you can set a price that allows you to make a reasonable profit while providing service to enough people. So we tend to think of using these 2 tools to creating a niche that takes you where you want to go, a unique selling proposition and a guarantee. Now, oftentimes we'll define a guarantee in order to establish what that unique selling proposition is. It's an exercise that goes through a series of steps to understand who really can we best serve that is not being served adequately today, so that we can provide them a proposition that is of more value to them than our competitors are providing. That gets us out of a price competition. Now people are evaluating us based on value as opposed to a commodity kind of thinking process. And yes, even pencils can be sold in a non-commodity manner if you work at it a little bit. I can say that because I've known people selling sheet steel which is literally a commodity in most everybody's mind, and yet they're able to command a higher price because of the service that they provide with that steel. Now, let's take a pause and catch up. What have you learned so far, and how can you apply it? Because we're going to take a major step with the next slide after this. Yes, yeah, yeah, and that's an interesting point, Kevin. And to be honest with you, that's what I learned when I first came on board the Action Coach system. Is a lot of what I was doing was exactly the same thing Action Coach was teaching, and I had figured it out for myself. However, I had never formalized it. Therefore, I had never done a good enough job training people. So I was having to do a tremendous amount more of the work than I should have had to have been able to do. I could have scaled even more if I had applied these things and systemized them and written them down. Yeah, value is more important than price. Thank you. Thank you, Arlene. All right. Yeah. Delegation. And there's a difference between delegation and abdication. Abdication is you throw out the task and have them do it and then walk away and don't pay attention to do they get it done. Delegation is much more rigorous, where you sit down and define not only what to do, but what the outcome needs to be, and then monitoring how well they're doing that. So this is where management happens. And you have to manage before you can lead. The making sure people are getting stuff done. And this gets to something that was said earlier by Kevin, and that is, if we're getting stuff done properly and we can trust that when we hand an assignment to somebody, they're going to get it done properly and on time, then we're going in the right direction and we can start talking about goals and vision. If we are dealing with somebody who's in total denial that they're going to do it the way you want it done and get the results that you want accomplished, then we got to go back to the question, do we trust that person, and do we even keep that person? So there's a lot to that delegation concept. Thank you, Susie. All right, so this is where we get to where the money is, and this is where the real power is. What we're gonna do is show you some ideas that are much like a chassis, a car chassis. In this particular case, we've got the VW Golf and the Audi R8, which are on the same chassis. There have been other cars through history that have been on the same chassis. If you've got basically a framework, then you can put an engine, a transmission, and a body on top of it. It looks like a different car, but the underneath framework is very much the same. And that's what we're going to show you about how to drive your business successfully. So a big piece of this is all about testing and measuring. And a very important piece of this can look like, let's say we're doing some pay-per-click advertising on Google. Well, we can put an ad out and pray that that ad works, or we can put two different ads out and compare which one works better than the other, take the one out that's not performing so well, and then put a third one in, so that we can measure again. This is usually called A/B testing, and we A/B test our way to success. So this is what test and measure can be throughout the rest of this program. And I'm going to start with how to make money. Most business owners know in their business how many customers they have, how much revenue they make, and how much profit they make. And for this purpose, we will define profit as the dividends that they make at the end of the game. So net profit, if you will, at the end of the P&L statement, less whatever they choose to take out as profit versus what they put back into the business so that they can grow it to the next stage. Unfortunately for those owners, these are really just outcomes. They are not actually things you can put very tight strategies on that are easy to measure and produce results. So we're going to focus on how to think of it a little bit differently. If you look at this chart, the red labels are the ones that most business owners think in terms of. They think in terms of the numbers of customers that they've got, they think in terms of the revenue that they make, and they think in terms of the profit that they're able to take out of the business. However, we can do a much more effective job of driving this business if we think instead of the number of leads that we receive per week or per month, the conversion rate or the number of those that we convert to sales. So then we have the number of customers. So that's where the number of leads times the conversion rate equals the number of customers. Then the number of customers times the numbers of times that they buy from us in a period of time, like a 1-year period, times the average dollar sale. Now, there's some sales that are a lot and some sales that are very little. What's the average? So if we multiply the number of customers we have times the number of times they buy from us in a year times the average dollar sale, then we will know our revenue for the year. That will mathematically work out. Then if we know what our profit margin is, we know what our profit is. Now, the average profit margin is a statistical number, and we can think of it as an efficiency factor. So if we think about how efficiently we convert our revenue to profit, then we can build a more scientific way, if you will, of scaling our business. Now, let me start with some real numbers to give you an example. And these are real numbers that were taken from a bakery a really long time ago. So we can use these as an example. And I do this with businesses with their own numbers all the time. And that's really kind of a core key, is how to look at your business through this kind of a lens. So if we have a business that has 4,000 leads in a year and is able to convert 25% of them, then how many customers do they have? Well, then they have 1,000 customers, because 25% of 4,000 is 1,000. Now, then if we can sell them twice in a given year on average, for an average dollar sale of $100, then our average revenue is $200,000. If our efficiency factor for converting revenue to profit is 25%, then we are producing a $50,000 bottom line. Now, you can take this same principle and convert it. It's linear. It's a linear conversion. You can extrapolate it to a $10 million business. You can extrapolate it to a billion-dollar business. It's the same basic principles that can be used, and all of the rest of your challenges happen inside of this formula. It's as if you're working on your business. So what if we take this very same business and decide, I'm going to work on those 5 things independently and separately, and I'm going to work at it in a little science. So think about, how are you generating leads today? Then think about, and go ahead and put it into the chat box, if you will, what are other ways to generate leads that you're not using at this time? I mentioned pay-per-click a little while ago. Could you be doing pay-per-click? Could you be doing social media in a different way than you are right now? Could you be doing email blasts? Could you be doing physical mail blasts? Could you be doing phone calls? Could you be cold calling? Could you drop in the door of people? If you're B2B, could you be dropping in businesses? So these are just some examples. I've got a list about 80 some different strategies that we can use to generate more leads. Kevin points out he uses trade shows. Trade shows are hard to use right this minute. Can we increase the number of leads in some other way? Kevin, I might ask, could you be doing Zoom webinars to supplement the trade shows? Could you be creating your own trade shows online, for example? And what would that look like? So if we could increase our lead generation by 10% doing one of these things, is that possible? Yeah, bringing the trade show to you. I like that. That's a very good adaptation to that. Is that a strategy that you could continue doing once COVID comes down, and or we get a vaccine and it works? Is that a way to bring your business to other people? Now, once you've got 10% more, yes, post blogs and reach out to other students. to former students. Yes, that's a fantastic way. Once you've created more leads, can we take a look at how effective your sales process is and increase your sales process by 10%? In this case, 10% is 25% to 27.5%. Can we do things that increase your conversion rate? If we can do that, how many new customers can we have? So what's 27.5% times 4,400? Well, it's 1,210. That's not 10%. That's actually 21% more customers. Are we going in the right direction? And by the way, a new business is really going to be stuck in this particular section of the chart. They're going to be working on creating new leads and learning how to sell. Older businesses can be looking at this other aspect of things. How many transactions? Can we increase the average number of transactions by getting some of our clients to buy from us 3 or 4 or 5 times per year? So if we can increase by 10%, and we can find ways to add more value into our services or our products that enable us to get an average sale of $110, what's our new revenue? Well, in this case, it goes to nearly $300,000, $290,000 to $820. That's a 46% increase just by working on these 4 variables themselves. Now, if we can work on those 4, can we increase our efficiency 10%? What are the things we can do that improve how we use our time so that we can get more productivity out of the same group of people? A story I told this morning in an earlier meeting was of a young man I'm working with who is in a sales role, and he's specifically a loan officer. So his job is to process loans. We started working about 2.5 years ago. We spent most of that time working on 2 areas. We worked in part on his marketing, and we worked in part on how efficiently he did his work so that he could process more loans. And we took him from 32 million of sales the first year to 47.5 million the second year to 59.5 million the second year. And then this year happened and the rates went down. So his marketing became really easy, but his ability to process loans had become so effective that he's currently got 90 million locked through August. And he's looking at the possibility of hitting 120 or 130 million by the end of the year. What he has said is the only way he could be at that level is by looking at how he was doing his work and finding opportunities to increase his efficiencies dramatically. That relates directly to this number right here. So we've increased his revenue in a way, or his profit in a way, by a factor of what, 4? That's how we get profit increases. In this particular case, it's 61% across a 1-year period of time. Now, if we did that, could we continue on year after year after year after year doing the same thing? Well, the answer is yes. We just have to keep adding resources in at appropriate places into our business and increasing the systemizing process, or systemizing things more effectively, so more people plus more people operating more productively each time. We can scale a business from this if it's reasonably scalable, if it's a product that's got enough market size that we can actually grow it. Is this a kind of thing you would want to do to your business? And I'll just let you think about that. Do you want to grow something on the order of 60% a year? Now, that takes us to leverage. This is where, and the story I just told factors into this. This factors into leverage. Leverage is the part of this game that takes you to that the business works. It works with you still, but it works. It's doing the work to achieve your goals because you have processes in place. This is increasing your efficiency as we go along. Now, leverage is all about systems to save yourself time, energy, and money. There are 9 key steps to systemizing a business. This particular book is a book that we use. I share 15 books with all of my customers at strategic times through a program so that they have tools to learn from on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis. The steps are this: vision statement, mission statement, culture statement, SMART goals, organization chart, and so on. The point I want to start with, everybody thinks the how-to systems, the how, writing down how you do a task is the first thing that they do. And what I'm going to say is that's really the 8th thing you want to do. It starts with, where is your business going? What's your vision? And what is then the mission? What's the strategies you're going to, the cluster of strategies you're going to use to implement that mission, that vision? What's the culture you want to have inside of that organization? So you know in advance you're going to have a team. What kind of a team do you want? Do you want a team of people that work willingly and nicely together? Or do you want a team of people that are beating each other up to compete with each other for attention? What kind of a culture do you want? Then SMART goals: specific, measurable, action-oriented, results-oriented, and time-bound. SMART goals. What are the very specific, quantifiable, measurable goals that you've got? Remember, this is a business. This is not a hobby. So we need to have targets, and that enables us to take chances on hiring people, take risks a little bit, because we know where we're going. We know how well it works because we've been testing and measuring. So we're able to extrapolate that if I do 10% more of this, I will get that. If I do 50% more of this, I will get that. So I know if I do this, I can get that. Then building an organization chart, yes, for what it is today, but really for what it's going to be when your business is complete. Knowing where we're trying to take this business is very, very important so that we can get this step-by-step process to the right place. Now, once we've got an organization chart, each position in that organization chart needs a basic agreement of what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, why they're going to do it that way, and where that contributes to the rest of the company. And then the measurable KPIs that position is responsible for, and the KPIs have to synchronize with the rest of the positions so that there's an achievement of the overall results that we're trying to get to. Then we can do the how-to systems, because only then do we really know which position is going to do which parts of the job, and then hand off what kind of a product to the next position. So that's why the how-to systems come later. There might still be a flow chart that's done earlier in the game so that you know what the process flow is, but you have to know which part of the process is going to be done by which position inside of that organization. And then we need to have a systematic approach to actually measuring the results from each position so that we know that we're getting the results that we're looking for. Now, a single person or a 2-person or a 3-person business, this feels kind of clumsy and kludgy, and that probably is right. But once you start getting it down to this, you can start seeing where your bottlenecks are more quickly. And you can start to fix the bottlenecks rather than scrambling and randomly fixing little bits of stuff here and there. The little bits of stuff here and there don't really, that leads to the chaos that we spoke about at the very beginning. So we need a managed process that we'll grow into, that will help us much later in the game. Now, a 1-person company where a person's going to lead a lifestyle business, probably that's not needed. But if you're going to build a business that works without the owner, that's a piece of the game that you're really going to want to start to build fairly early. Now I'm going to pause and ask you what you've learned so far. Yeah, it's really interesting. Once you go through those 9 steps, and I'm gonna abuse the word systematically. Once you go through those 9 steps, it's much more clear where you're getting to, where you're going. Can you do it without it? Possibly, but it's the efficiency is not there. Now this is where the most important opportunities for scaling start to happen. Once we've got control of where we can get money, now we have an opportunity to start hiring and matching our hiring to our growth financially. Now this is the trick that people get in trouble with. They start to hire too soon and they don't have control of the financial growth. Then they've got too many people too soon, or not enough people soon enough. But making it predictable gives them the opportunity to do this. And this is where we get to the profitable enterprise that works without the owner. This is the real goal of the organization right here. I'm going to bring up this little quote from Tom Peters. This comes out of the book Good to Great. Most employees are motivated, energetic, committed, enthusiastic, and loyal, except for the 8 hours a day they work for you. Now, this is an interesting reflection on leadership. How well are you managing and leading them to an outcome that they can relate to and get enthusiastically on board with? Are they there for the paycheck? Are they there to embrace and achieve the vision? Those are 2 different kinds of people. The people that are there for the paycheck, they will put in 8 hours, mostly. Sometimes they'll show up on time, and sometimes they will leave after the end of the day. But they will be doing Facebook, they will be doing other things when they get the opportunities and they don't have some work handed to them. You got to ask yourself, are those the people that you want? The people that are in it for the vision, they're going to put in their heart, they're going to put in their soul, they're going to put the real energy in, and they're the ones that are going to help you get those higher efficiencies that you need in order to be profitable at a reasonable scale here. So I'm going to lay out a cycle of business. Now, I tend to think of there's 2 cycles in business. There's an external cycle that involves the economy, and I like to think of it in terms of summer, winter, fall, and spring. Summer is where business is going great. Fall is where we're getting towards a recession. Winter is where we're in a recession, and then spring is where we're coming out of the recession. I'm not going to talk to that in this particular case. What I am going to talk about is something internal to the business. Most owners of small businesses start their business themselves, working with a relatively small number of customers. And the owner gets really, really comfortable working with those customers, and all of his activity is wrapped around serving his customers, and all of his relationships are wrapped around serving his customers. The problem is, at a certain point of time, if he grows successfully, he can get really, really busy. That's not bad, but now all of a sudden he can't provide the same amount of attention to each customer that is the brand that he's been trying to conduct. So if he's stressed to provide the service because he's running out of time, he's got more customers than he can manage, but he's not making the amount of money that he really wants to make, and he's not got the free time he really wants to have, then he's stressed and he will hire people to help him. Now, so he hires 1 or 2 or 3. Then all of a sudden, he's still serving customers. Then all of a sudden, he finds out that he's really, really busy, not only serving customers like he did before, but also putting the fires out from the team members that don't quite do it the way he thought they would do it and the way he intended for them to do it, because he hasn't really been putting enough attention into the how well are they trained, how were they onboarded, and what are their focus points. So in reality, what has to happen is the owner has to find a way to focus all of his attention on training team, developing team, supervising and managing team, so that the team can conduct the business exactly as though they were him or her, so that they can provide service to the customers exactly the way that they're supposed to meet the brand that the owner had originally established. So now with that team, we should be able to leverage many more times that number of customers that the owner could serve all by himself. Now, once we've got that level of activity going on, there's enough customers. The customers will support the business by doing business, and then the business can support the owner by providing dividends and wealth according to the scale that they have built up to. So then this becomes a cycle. The more the owner hires team and trains team, the more customers the team can serve, the more customers the team can serve, the more business goes on, and the more business that goes on, the more income the business can provide the owner. And in time, as the organization gets structured and gets to a critical mass size, the owner can start firing himself from roles and responsibilities to the point where he can step out of the business and he can establish some form of a leadership team or even a general manager in place. And that brings us, the keys of a winning team are these 6. It starts with strong leadership. Now, this is not talking about dictatorial versus democratic by any means whatsoever. Both work in different kinds of situations, and both can do damage in the wrong situation. The key to strong leadership really is a strong and clear and concrete vision, and focusing intensively on the vision, and not just focusing yourself on the vision, but every single person in the team needs to be focused on that vision. If they're not there to accomplish the vision, they're probably the wrong person to have on the team. I don't care how knowledgeable that they are. If they are not married to the vision, they may not be the strength that you need. That gets us to the word common goal. Now, goal is really important and needs to be clear, but the word common means we all in the team participate in creating the goal together. We know what the vision needs to be. What's the goal that takes us to the vision that we all can achieve, so that we're all married to it, we all participated, and we are all committed 100% to achieving that goal. Then we play the game according to the rules. So we remember we had an organization chart we talked about in the systemizing section. We work according to the organization chart. We work according to the flow chart that we built for the business that we're trying to accomplish, so that we all work and we know what to anticipate from the person that preceded us, and we know what's going to happen by the person downstream of us, so that we know what our piece of this process is. It's just like a football team. Everybody has to play their role perfectly in order for the team to win. That requires an action plan that we know who does what by when. So we know that the person that's snapping the ball has to do something upon, he not only has to snap it effectively, but he has a position to play. After that, he has something he has to accomplish. Meanwhile, the quarterback has an activity he's supposed to do according to the play, and there's a running back and perhaps a receiver out there that has to do something. Each person has a role that they have to play, and they've got to play their role well. So that's the action plan. Now, at some point, each person develops enough skill, they need to learn how to do the next piece themselves, and we have to give them the room to take some chances. Now, that doesn't mean we walk away from this. This is where the abdication word comes in. We have to be able to manage them. That means we have to sit down and look at what we've accomplished each step of the way. So every day and every week, we may be sitting down with that person looking at what they did, how well did it work, what did we learn from it, and how could we improve next. None of this is about blame. None of this allows room for excuses. None of this allows room for denial. This is all about taking ownership of where we were at, what we have to do next, how do we take responsibility for getting that done, and then after the fact, did we actually get it done? And if we didn't, what did we learn from that, and how can we do better next? So that's where this really comes in. Now, as the team goes on, we expect, as an owner, we expect 100% of their effort. We expect them to involve themselves 100% to get the results that we're looking for, but that means we have to include them 100% in the decisions of the business so that they have ownership of the decision that was made. If they don't have ownership, that's their opportunity to make excuses and blame somebody else. That's their opportunity to take denial. But if they were involved in the decision, then they own it. And if they own it, they got to play by those rules. They've got to take responsibility for achieving it. Remember, we're all in this to achieve that vision and that common goal. So we're all in it together. This becomes the key to building a winning team. But to get here, we had all the way back at niche, we had to build a pipeline of cash flow in order to be able to build this team so that we can afford the team. If we've built that niche program, that 5 ways program well, then we can forecast how much money could we make if we added these next 2 or 3 people. This allows us the budgeting flexibility. This allows us to take, I'm going to say take financial risk and know what the parameters of that risk really are so that we don't get into deep trouble and get in over our head and get so confused and so much chaos going on that we burn out. This is how we build this process so that it works for us for the long term. The key to the owner is leading a team that knows how to get all the right people on the right bus going to the right destination. That is the key to this whole game. And I take that again from Tom Peters. That came out of the same book. Focusing on how to build a winning team really is the role of the owner. Now, that takes us up to the next 2 stages. All of what we've talked to so far is really about building a team that does the work for us. At this stage, we've created an opportunity for synergy and growth and results. This is about the freedom, real freedom of the owner, not having to be there every day, not having to invest multiple hours every day in this business because it's doing it for you. You can now be either an investor or a participant, depending on where your heart is. But from a financial point of view, you do not have to be there in order for the business to operate successfully. So this is really a major phase transition opportunity. This is where you can install a general manager, run the business from your perspective on autopilot because the business is running it. The general manager is running it for you. You still have to manage the general manager. You are the owner. You are, in effect, becoming a CEO at this stage. The general manager's job is to run that business for you. Now, when I talk about synergy and results, the synergy part of this is now you're receiving enough cash, you've got decisions you can make. You can live on that cash. You can take that cash and invest it in more businesses, and I would advocate buying businesses. Using all of the skills that you've developed today, you can buy businesses and build them to do exactly the same thing. And the more of those businesses that you can build, the more cash and results you can produce for yourself. I'm going to use a quote from Richard Branson to give an example of where this goes. If you can learn to run one business successfully, there's no reason you can't run any number of businesses at the same time. The principles are all the same. I've seen these exact same principles successfully grow all kinds of different businesses. It's not about what the industry is. It's about how well you implement these strategies and these principles in your particular market, in your particular business model. Now, when I talk about a chassis, that's what I'm really talking about. It's a framework that you can hang a lot of different equipment on and turn it into an operating, profitable business that produces the results you're looking for. Now, before we go on, because there's a little bit more, what I want to do is make sure I've covered the job so far well enough. If I have to go back and pick something up, I'd like to do it now. So share with me, if you would, on the chat box, what have you learned so far and how can you apply it? Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, strong leadership is a big deal. And like I said, this is not about dictatorial instead of democratic. It can be democratic just as well. It's really about vision. What's your vision? Taking the vision all the way to the end. And the more clear the vision, the easier it is to be successful. I mentioned ActionCOACH's vision as world abundance through business re-education. That drives 1,000 coaching offices scattered around 70 countries, and we all collaborate to accomplish that. What I can guarantee right this minute is that 12 months from today, you will arrive. The real question is where? We have these two people, Tom and Fred, Tom on the left, Fred on the right. Tom is headed towards burnout because he hasn't yet chosen to really work in a systematic way of getting his business to where he wants to get it. Fred on the right has, I think he's there doing some Facebook posting, if you will, just for fun, sitting in the sunrise there. And I like to think of it as sunrise instead of sunset. But, you know, where do you want to be? How do you want the experience to look? What do you want your business to look like when you're done? Any of these outcomes is available. You can do any of them. That's your choice. But understand that the results are yours and anticipate a little bit. I can't count the number of businesses I've watched over the 10 years I've been doing this. I've watched these guys go out of business because, and I'm going to say it, burnout was the issue. That was the common issue. The real symptom for each one was a little bit different, but for most of them, it really centered around not making enough money, mostly because they didn't understand how to extrapolate and make it work for them without being in real chaos, and they were terrified of the chaos. The choice is yours. You can go either way, improve your business on your own, or you're interested in extrapolating and get some massive results in your business. Either way, that's your choice. What I'm going to do is make an offer. Either way, it doesn't matter to me which is your choice, but I'm still going to make the offer of one free coaching session, if you will, 1.5 hours-ish, a little more, a little less. It's up to you. What I want to do is take the general information we talked about today, apply it to your specific business. The goal there will be to see if we can identify together 3 to 5 strategies that will take you in the direction you want to go towards the outcome you want to achieve. We may find at the end of that conversation that there's a place that it makes sense that we work together to help you get there faster. In either case, you can take those strategies and apply them on your own or with me. Either way you want to go, the offer is there for you. What I am going to ask you to do is, I think you've all got my email information. Send me an email to confirm that's what you would like to do with your phone number. I will call you. We'll obviously do this on Zoom, but I will call you and we'll set a schedule. I may ask you to fill out a questionnaire so that I know a little bit more about your business. But if you fill out that questionnaire, then I'm in a better position to anticipate and we can use the time most effectively. So I'm going to stop. This has been my time to talk. This is your time to talk. I'm going to give you an opportunity. What questions do you have from here? What have I not covered well enough that I could improve? What are your questions? And I'll do my best to provide you some answers. Give me some feedback if you would. And if you really got something out of it, I'd appreciate it if you go on to Google and give me a review on Google. That helps me gain some credibility out there for the next webinar. There'll be another webinar in about a month, different topic, but the more people that can get some value out of this, the better. With that, I want to quote Jim Rohn. Never wish your life were easier. Wish that you were better. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And now it's time to get into action. And thank you.